Welcome to the Culture of Agriculture, brought to you by Sputnik Equipment. We'd like to welcome everyone to the Culture of Agriculture, sponsored by Sputnik. I'm Brent Rigby. I'll be your host today, and we are favored to have Zach Johnson here with the Millennial Farmer. Well, Zach, do you want to tell us a little bit about, I know I got a chance to listen to some of your podcasts, and you talked a little bit about the generation of your farm.
Yeah.
I thought that'd be a real good spot to start. And kind of give us a little background of when your farm was homesteaded. I know it was homesteaded at that time, and kind of walk us through a little of that.
So I don't know how many greats it would be, but in 1868, Grandpa, one of my grandpas and Grandma, they came over from Sweden. That was in 1868, started farming the piece that we're on now, and they homesteaded in 1874, and now we're here 6 generations later. And raising my kids on the farm, so we got 7 generations on the farm right now, and it's pretty cool.
That is exciting to see.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about how many are really in agriculture anymore. I mean, it's probably closer to 1% of the nation anymore is actually involved in production agriculture.
Right. Yep.
And with that, it's neat to hear family farms that are staying in the family, because as a lot of this land changes, you see it disappear. You talked a little bit about in your talk today, but maybe kind of share a little bit of some of the reasons, because this will go out to a lot of other people as well, but the reason that you started doing this, because I really liked what you talked about earlier today.
Yeah, the reason I started everything I'm doing online with social media, it was 100% a hobby, and it was my way of trying to, portray the industry in a positive way. And what I wanted to do was make sure I show them who I am and who my family is and who we are as a farm family. And I wanted to be transparent and say, hey, when we plant genetically modified seed, when we spray pesticides, when we install drain tile or work with irrigation, or the way we treat livestock, I wanted to be transparent about that. And I didn't want to sit down and try to be informative and just say, these things are good and everything we do is always good. And what I wanted to do was kind of go through the growing season. And then when we're planting GMOs, I can say, yes, this is genetically modified corn seed. Here are the reasons we use this. This is the benefits we feel we get from it. If we felt like we were being more harmful to the natural resources or to the consumers or to ourselves, it's not something we'd be interested in. But here's the benefits from this, that, and the other thing, and I just wanted to be transparent about what we're doing on the farms.
You bet. And I think that's a big key to making it a success.
Yeah.
Is to be able to show that.
Yeah, I think so. Just be real.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's what people want to see.
Yep,
because
I do too.
We get used to news, and sometimes the news isn't necessarily telling everything that we wanted.
And you start to know that, right? You start to watch that, and you're like, no, there's more to this story.
Yes.
But they're embellishing here. They're sensationalizing things. There's something going on. You're not getting the whole picture.
Yeah, and they only have a short period. Sometimes when they visit with us or interview one of us, it's a short clip that you get in there because of their time.
Yep.
And so it's nice to be able to do what you're doing to kind of fill in that gap.
Right.
To allow other people to see what we're really doing.
Yep.
And what's out there.
Absolutely.
So, what are some of the biggest challenges in doing this that you see? I mean, I know it takes your time.
The social media side of things?
Yes.
Editing was difficult for me for a long time. Luckily, my wife actually, she picked it up, learned how to do it, and so for the last 4 years, I think she has done 90% of the editing, at least 80%. Recently here now, she's been really, really busy with the kids in all their sports and stuff, so I've had to kind of pick some of that up. I've been doing a lot more editing again. We really, honestly, and I've known this for a while, we need an employee. Mm-hmm. But I feel like I'm too independent. I just want to do everything myself, and that's to my detriment. I know that. But to this point, we have almost never hired anything. We've got one editor that we've worked with online, never met him in person. He's helped us out with some podcast editing, and I think one video he helped us with. But otherwise,
you've done it.
I've been pretty stubborn in that regard, and I don't think I should be, but that's a hurdle of mine, I guess. I always feel like if we can't keep up with it ourselves, then we're probably trying to do too much. I don't know.
Well, and the other side is you know how it's being handled. at that point.
You do, yeah,
It's hard to let go of those reins sometimes.
for sure.
To have somebody else do that. And
Yeah, on my, it was my brainchild, my baby, and my hobby, my art project that blew up, if you will. Because when I record a video during the day, I have an idea in my head of how the day went, how the video should turn out, right? So it was difficult even to have my wife take that on.
because you were thinking different than she.
Yeah, and so there was definitely, still is some difficulty there sometimes where I'll watch a video she edits, and it's already online, and I'm like, oh, that isn't what I intended there, but I don't tell her that.
Well, and she's probably getting a feel for what you want out there as well.
Yeah,
Because she realizes what you're doing is.
Yeah, and at this point, it's a pretty good flow, so even if her editing style is a little different than mine, it's what the viewers are used to, and obviously they're watching, so
Exactly.
yeah.
Do you key on anything? You probably do this weekly or daily. How often do you kind of try to put a video out?
As far as the videos on YouTube, when we're busy during harvest, that's what everybody wants to see. So it's a little more difficult for me because it's my busiest time of year on the farm, and it's when I need to be the busiest with my social media as well because it's what everyone wants to see. So we're trying to push out 5 videos a week during harvest. So it definitely gets taxing trying to remember to, take the camera out every few minutes. When something's happening, I got to keep the storyline flowing, right? Yep. So there's a difficult balance there for sure.
And so sometimes you miss some things because you're in the heat of the battle.
Yeah.
You got to get it done.
Yeah, if something really bad goes wrong, sometimes it's just like we got to get going here. There's guys standing here, and we got to get wrenches moving and get something fixed. And but that there again, that's what makes the best content.
It does.
So people want to see. They don't want to miss that. So
they want to see that problem-solving part.
They do, yeah, absolutely. There's the problem, the setup, conflict resolution, the storyline, right? So you have to try to figure that out, and that can be difficult.
Well, I thought the farmer I was chatting with there at the end today as we walked over here, that's what his comment was. It's nice to see that somebody else has somewhat of that same issue. Sure. So you're talking about the farm community watching as well as the community that is not the farm. But the farm community is enjoying it too because they see that, hey, we're each up against some of the same things.
Yeah. Every farm now, there's so many moving pieces. I mean, look at the amount of machines every farm has, and then how many moving pieces are in each machine. And that's just, the physical, mechanical pieces. Then you think about the management and the employees and the families there and all those moving pieces. Things are bound to go wrong.
Oh, yes.
All the time. And so that's what farmers are good at, is dealing with those problems as they come.
And dealing them with in real time.
In real time,
You don't have a week to.
Right. Yeah, no, this broke. We have to fix this now.
Yes. Because weather's coming in and stuff like that. Wow. I know you have been involved a little bit with the farm rescue.
Yeah.
That was another thing that I thought would be good to kind of visit. It sounds like, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the Farm Rescue Organization, this summer I believe they passed, I know they were close, I believe they passed 1,000 farms that they've helped. And what they do is it's all volunteer work, and everything is funded through donations, and they help family farms in times of crisis. So if somebody's sick, somebody has an injury, maybe somebody passes away, whatever it might be, they'll roll in with a group full of volunteers and a combine or two and a bunch of trucks, and they will get things done. And they'll move in. If you got 1,000 acres of corn you got to harvest, I know they have limits on the amount of hours they'll spend at a farm. If you got 30,000 acres, they can't send everybody to your place for 2 weeks, right? But they'll roll in. Say you got 400 acres, they'll roll in and try to organize with your neighbors and get things moving and take the corn where you want it or whatever it might be they're working on. And they're doing crops. They work with livestock. They haul hay. When there's serious droughts or fires and livestock guys need help, they'll haul hay that either gets donated or bought. They'll donate the trucking and the time, and they really do fantastic stuff for family farms. And
tell us maybe a story that you know about there. I think that would be
about them. Yeah. Well, I'll jump back even farther here first and say working with them has been kind of extra rewarding for me because my own personal family farm. Back in 1960, before I was born, obviously, Grandpa, so this would be my actual grandpa, Dad's dad, was sick with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And he was in Denver getting treatments while we farm in Minnesota. And the neighbors all got together and planted our crop in the matter of a couple of days. And the community came out, the bankers brought out water for everybody, and we still have the newspaper clippings from it all. And so that was a time where the community came together and helped out our family farm. And I don't know what would have happened without that, without the neighbors coming together. So I've been fortunate enough to be able to hop in and return some of that favor to some of our neighbors at a couple points over the years. And I noticed Farm Rescue was doing that same kind of thing on a much bigger scale. And kind of reached out to him, said, hey, if you ever need help, I would love to help out. And as a bonus, as long as I could, do a video on it without embellishing on what I don't want to make a spectacle out of somebody's problems. Right. So I don't want to, act like I'm only out there for the clout, right? I'm only out here to make this video. But if we can find a situation where the family involved is okay with it, I would love to go out there, help you, make the video, bring awareness, and take it to my audience and say, this is happening. These guys need truck drivers. They need people who can run a combine. They need donations. If you guys are interested in helping, here's who these guys are. So the only way that I'm involved at all is, helping to spread their message and donating my time and money to them to just let them do what they do well at.
Mm-hmm. That's a neat situation to be able to be in, to be able to help promote that.
Oh, it's awesome.
So do you probably work on that through the spring and the fall when things are kind of going that way?
Yeah, the difficult part for me is, when they're busy, I'm busy.
Yep.
So it's been tough that way, but they were in the area about 30, 40 miles from me here this last fall. Once we finished up, and they called me up, said, hey, we're here now if you're interested. And it was perfect. Like, we're done right now. We still got stuff going on, but yes, I'll be there tomorrow. And I went down, ran combine for a day, and got to help out a family where a guy had surgery and was just laid out for a couple of weeks. And they had 400 acres of corn left, so we rolled in and knocked it out as fast as we can. And they brought the truckers and the combines, and we just went to town.
Got it all done for them?
They did, yeah. Yeah, I only helped with that, I think it was 120 acres we took out that day, but yeah, they got it all done and rolled on to the next.
Well, that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
I know here a few years ago we had some weather come in on potatoes. It's probably been 3 years ago, and we saw a lot of that action around here as well. Sure. It's amazing to me to see how farmers will group together. You might be working on your own operations and maybe not always agreeing on everything, but when you have a time of crisis,
yeah,
it seems like that everybody jumps in.
It's like things really hit home and everybody says, yeah, if I was ever in that position, that's kind of the way I think about it, is if our family was ever in that position again, I would hope that those people would be there, right? And so I guess if that's what I'm hoping for, then I better be there as well for the neighbors when they need help.
Because it kind of takes all of us to do that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, that's neat. That's neat that you're involved in that.
Yeah.
And you're probably involved in a couple other organizations, the FBN.
So yeah, FBN is a company that I guess I'm involved with, but I work with them. Mm-hmm. Didn't have anything to do with starting the company or anything, but right. Yeah, Farmers Business Network is a little bit more of a disruptive company, I guess. They brought a lot of transparency to the market when it comes to pricing, yep, especially on seed and chemicals and direct inputs. And they started out as a data company, trying to take your data and really make it useful at the ground level for farmers, which they still do. Mm-hmm. And then from there they got into the transparent side of the data, as far as saying, okay, well, say you've got a specific chemical you need to use. You can go on their platform and look it up and say, this is what I paid. And they'll put your price here and say, well, your industry average was $10 a gallon less. Some people paid $30 a gallon more. Some people were $100 a gallon less, and they brought that information over, and from there it turned into, well, now they sell chemicals, and now they're working on insurance and financing and kind of whatever the members want. They take that opportunity to start up a division and get involved in it.
Which is helpful to the other growers that are
yeah.
out there. I know I've signed up and I watched that a little bit.
Good. Yeah.
It's good to know that.
It is, yeah. Yeah, it's a good network to be a part of.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and we've also, one of the things we've done is my wife and I now, We started a nonprofit here a couple of years ago, and we started it because we wanted to raise money for grain bin safety and give back to local volunteer fire departments, and they can use the money for training or for equipment to for grain bin rescues. So we've got a lot of that in the Dakotas and Minnesota, where there's a lot of corn being stored on farms. And unfortunately, farmers find themselves in tough situations once in a while. It's not a safe place to work in. And so these local small town volunteer fire departments, first responders, they get called out. They need to know what's going on. They need to have the right equipment to help these farmers. And a lot of them do, a lot of them don't. Mm-hmm. So we kind of started this fundraising thing where we put in some of our own money and encouraged other people to donate. And the viewers wanted us to set up a GoFundMe. So we set up a GoFundMe, and the next thing you know, we got like $40,000 in the GoFundMe, plus the money we were putting in. Then we went live on YouTube to kind of divvy those funds out to volunteer fire departments. By the time it was said and done, it was like $65,000.
Wow.
And it was like, holy smokes, man. Like now I got 65 grand of other people's money that's coming through me on the way out, right? Yes. We have to set something official up here. This is way bigger than I planned. Mm-hmm. So we set up the nonprofit. Now we run it all through there, and we were able to do it again. And in the last couple of years now, it's been well over $100,000 that we've been able to give back to right around 100 volunteer fire departments all throughout the U.S. and maybe even a couple in Canada, if I'm remembering correctly.
Well,
that is. And we know for sure that the equipment that these departments have purchased have saved at least 2 lives at this point.
On the grain bin safety.
Yep.
Wow, that makes it worth it.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's coming from the viewers, from the people watching the YouTube channel.
Wow.
So it's cool.
That is cool.
Really cool.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I guess where we don't do corn and that out here, we don't hear too much about bin safety, even though we do grain.
Yep.
But we don't seem to get into the situations that they do out there in the corn country.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah.
It's all agriculture, but it's different.
Yeah.
Each area does a little different. You have a little different areas where you have to watch your safety.
Yeah.
In agriculture, we're not the greatest in safety.
We want to get things done, right?
Yeah.
We move right through it.
Yep, I know how it is.
Yep. For this next year, how's things looking on your farm for this next coming year? Got everything kind of planned out? And
I got it planned out in my head. I don't have it all worked out in the shop. Yeah, we got everything's still snowed in and frozen right now. So, but yeah, we're looking good. Not any real big changes. We got wiped out by a tornado last year pretty hard. Lost a grain bin and a shed and some other damage. So we did get the new shed up to replace it. We've got a house and 2 sheds still standing that all 3 need roofs. So we'll do that this spring, and then we're going to replace that grain bin that we lost with a bigger grain bin. So it'd be nice to get that up. We're going to put up a pretty big grain bin. We should have a lot of storage for a while now.
on that. So, well, what time of year did the tornado come through?
That was middle of May last year.
I think I remember hearing about it.
Yeah, we were supposed to be planting. Usually we're planting or trying to be done planting by then. We hadn't even started. It was so muddy.
Because of the wet spring.
Because of the wet spring, and then the tornado. We got straight line winds where we were. The tornado was a couple miles away, but it was the straight line winds that really nailed us. But took the roof off one of the sheds, the shed that the planter happened to be in.
Oh, wow.
And so the walls fell in on the planter, did some damage. So here we are. We're 2-3 weeks late already on planting. And now half our machinery is destroyed. And so we were pretty nervous for a little bit there about what exactly we were going to do. But it worked out. Our local dealers were able to get on top of stuff and did a really good job of helping us get things together again.
Well, that's great. And then as far as last year's crop, everything went well?
Yeah.
Corn and soybeans and...
Yeah, like you say, we were wet in the spring, so we dealt with a lot of mud. But we got everything in, and then, of course, once we got it in, it quit raining. So we were dry the rest of the year. We ended up right at average on both crops, on corn and soybeans. So, I mean, you always hope for better, but you can't complain with that.
The harvest went well, and...
Harvest was probably the easiest harvest I can remember in my life. And I hate to even use that word easy because it's still harvest, but for a harvest, it was just, the weather was awesome. Everything got knocked out. We didn't have any major breakdowns. I mean, it was unbelievable.
And it was nice. We saw that corn, soybeans, wheat, barley, potatoes. We saw it across the country.
Just a good weather cycle.
Different crops, yes.
Yep.
And we were pretty lucky to get that in.
Yep.
course, now, hopefully next year we don't change.
Yeah, hopefully. We know at some point it will.
Oh, we do. So, but you've got everything kind of planned as far as what your crops are going in and everything like that for spring. What time you usually start in April?
We try to if we can. I mean, if we can plant April 20th or 25th, we will. Some guys will insist on waiting till May 1st. We tend to believe we see a pretty big yield increase if we can get it in earlier. But there is still a risk of a freeze for us at that time. But I would say our average is May 1st. That, sometimes, like last year, we didn't get started till, gosh, it was May 20th probably, at least, by the time we got in there.
Yep. And so that's probably why you saw, even though you had a good summer,
Yeah.
you saw a little of that yield reduction, just didn't have the growing degree that
Yeah, it certainly didn't help, yeah, because, we're farther north than we're sitting here, and when you're growing corn, you need all those heat units to get that grain filled out and dried down.
What are some of the challenges in agriculture you see in the next few years?
Around us, I don't see labor being a huge issue, but I know for a lot of areas it is. I know potatoes are really labor intensive. We were talking about that earlier. I know vegetable crops can be really labor intensive. I think labor could be an issue. This inflation thing, when I price out used machinery right now, I know I'm talking to an equipment builder, but my gosh, I don't know how some of that will cash flow. Some of these upgrades to machinery, and I'm not blaming the machinery builders, but it's just like, how do we make this work?
The inflation has really hit us.
It's crazy.
And the bad part is kind of through that COVID period, we talk about COVID, but through those 3 years or so, we've really seen the inflation hit us pretty good.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't get what we needed.
Right. Yeah, and now we're getting it, and everything, it's been this hyperinflation, right? And land has gone up, and that's got me concerned right now. Long term, I think regulations we need to watch out for. I think we need to be aware of who's making the laws, and if we're going to make laws, that's great. They're all well intended, but we need to make sure that they're common sense laws so that we can still do business.
Yes. And I think some of that is kind of goes back to the attribute what you're doing, is you've got a voice out there that you're putting out there. Yeah. I think a lot of times, unless it really affects us, we don't tend to voice.
We kind of stay quiet on it. Yeah.
And so when there's some of that legislation and some different things that are coming up, we need to be active.
Yeah. Yeah. And if we're not personally, there's groups like around us, we have the Corn and Soybean Growers Association at the local, state, and national levels. And groups like that will really help lobby for the farmers.
And and we need to support those groups.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that is a voice that we need in that legislation.
Yep.
So.
Yep, for sure.
Which sometimes I think we're a little quiet.
Yep, we are.
But you're busy. You get going.
That's the thing. Everybody's busy.
And you're pushing along. So,
Yep.
But they need to see what we're doing so that they understand why we either need it or we don't need it.
Right. Yep.
So everybody likes to eat.
I love to eat.
And it's nice not to have had any of that problem coming through that pandemic.
Right.
So
Yep.
we all ate fries and we ate hamburger and buns and all that other stuff. So
Yep.
it was nice to have that.
Do you guys have a lot of hogs up here at all?
We don't. We don't have a lot of hogs. There's very few.
So the hog processors around us had big problems during COVID. They had to shut down, and it was backing up. The farmers had to get rid of hogs because they have more coming. Yep. And they have the little ones are getting bigger, so we got to get the finished hogs out of here, and the processing plants couldn't
keep up because they couldn't process.
So it was kind of weird. We had, I think there were hogs being sold out the back door and butchered on farms and wherever,
Just so that they could keep things moving.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and that affected the feed a little bit for a period of time because they probably had numbers go down.
Yeah.
Try and scale back up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It kind of shakes everything up.
So are you involved in cattle and hogs?
I'm not involved. I'm familiar. I do work with cattle and hog guys. I've been on a lot of tours of the farms and try to highlight them when I can on the channel. When I was younger, my dad had cattle and hogs. He had beef cows and hogs on the farm there. So I remember growing up with them. But he sold those before I got too old and had to do too much for chores with them. So my memories are before I really had to work with them a whole lot. And I know at the time it was the 80s, 80s and early 90s, and he just needed to remove some risk from what he was doing. And
Yep.
and you know, I think it was difficult for him in the moment at the time, but I don't think he regrets it.
Regrets. Well, and he's specialized in what you're doing now.
Yeah.
So that you stay up. You get as you get bigger in an operation, if you're too spread out, you don't necessarily focus on certain things that you need to
Yeah.
make it productive.
Yeah, there might have been some of that as well.
Or you have to have one or two more guys on,
Right.
so that you
Just to be able to get everything done. Yeah.
So I think anymore we're pretty intense. We've got to have the yields to match the inputs and to be able to market that. So it takes as a farmer, you're in a lot of different areas.
Yeah.
I think that's the other part that's exciting on your YouTube too, and that type of stuff, is they get to see that, hey, you go from one thing today, you could be doing something totally different tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then you're in the finance side trying to pay all the bills and trying to take care of that all at
Right.
the same time. And so you're seeing a whole different picture all the time.
Yeah.
And it's not the same thing every day.
Right. And that's one of the things I love about farming. You know, I don't get bored because every day is different. And like I joke with my wife about how different my life is December through March versus the rest of the year, you know, and then like how different harvest really is. And it's just, it's so seasonal. It's so different.
And people enjoy watching that
Yeah, I think so.
because they
It's
get
unique.
to see the differences that you do. You know, a lot of times an office job, you go and you kind of do the same thing. I know my wife kind of revolves around the same thing in her office.
Sure.
Whereas, you know, here it's something different each day,
Yep.
a different challenge, and that's what's fun about farming, is you get to have that challenge.
Yep. Definitely.
So, anything you'd like to tell the group?
Like I touched on earlier, I think if you're involved in agriculture right now, agriculture is trendy, food is trendy, people like to know their farmers. I mean, look at how popular farmers markets have gotten. So I think it's important, if you're involved in agriculture, if you think you can be good at something, try to be a positive voice for the industry, because we need that. People are listening, they're paying attention. So let's portray ourselves in a good light here and let them know who we are as people.
Yes, and I totally agree. We do need to do that. I think people want to know where their food comes from more now than ever before,
Yeah.
because they probably don't understand where it came from.
I was going to say, yeah. And yeah, ironically, they're more disconnected than ever before. So I think you're right. There's absolutely a draw there for them. Suddenly they're going, hey, you know what? I don't know anything about where my food comes from. And some of them are really interested.
Yeah, I think they are, and we're health conscious. We want, you know,
Yep.
we want to stay healthy, and so I think that's the other thing that everybody wants to know too, is, hey, we're there to actually put on a good product that is healthy for you.
Yep.
We were out to a meeting. They were talking about potato chips. Potato chips is one of the most healthy food that you can actually buy in that snack realm, which is kind of interesting. I
Really?
didn't always necessarily look at it that way.
Right, yeah.
You know, it's cooked in oil and the whole 9 yards, but yet.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was kind of interesting as we looked through that. But each part of corn and soybeans and all that, you look at that and they go into different things that are very healthy for each of us.
Right. Yep.
So, but no, we appreciate your background in farming, and also being out there and putting a positive spin to let everybody know kind of what farming's doing.
Yeah, thank you. I've enjoyed doing it. It's not, when I started this goofy little hobby of trying to connect with people, I certainly did not expect to end up with, as we record this, I have like 994,000 subscribers right now. So I'm dang near 1 million.
Almost 1 million.
And I am sitting in Idaho talking to you, right? These are things I never expected. So
Yeah, you expected to be still on the farm back there in the
Yeah.
middle of winter,
Yeah.
probably trying to open the door, put a piece of equipment in, and work on it.
Exactly.
And here you are today,
Yeah.
and we're chatting a little bit about what you're doing to spread the positive word.
Yep.
So, and we appreciate you taking time to come to Idaho and spend some time with us.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
So we again like to thank Zach for being here, and we'd really encourage each of you, if you get a chance, to go on YouTube and look Millennial Farmer up. He has some very interesting videos. It's been fun to watch. He's even got one that they're dancing in the combine cab. So
You got to dig for that one. That one's getting old now.
that one's getting old.
Yeah.
You might have to refresh that one.
Might have to redo one.
That was a good one. So anyway, so thanks Zach for being with us today, and I'm Brett Rigby, and glad to have you here with us at the Culture of Agriculture, sponsored by Sputnik. Hope everybody has a good day, and be safe out there as we start to get ready for spring planting. So thanks everybody for joining us.